Hi everyone, this is Chris Craig with Unanet, and this session focuses on the setup for billing, invoicing, and revenue recognition. There is a follow-on video that actually walks through the process of billing and revenue recognition, and we encourage you to view both videos. This actually focuses on the background data setup. Unanet is a role-based system, so when someone authenticates into the system, it identifies who they are, and then based on their user privileges or their roles, it will dynamically generate a dashboard type view. So we've logged in, and this is a dashboard that's presented to us, and you can make Unanet as simple or as sophisticated as you want. You may only have one chart on your dashboard. You may only have 5 reports saved over here. It's really up to you as far as how simple or how sophisticated you want to make it. And just for navigation purposes, each of these menu items across the top represents a different dashboard. So this is our project dashboard with a set of charts and reports. This is our forecast dashboard with another set of charts and reports, so on and so forth. So if we go under the administrator area, this is where you actually define your chart of accounts. So basically, you can have whatever account structure you want within Unanet, and within each account, you define each account as a certain type: asset, expense, liability, revenue, whether or not transactions are allowed on the account, or whether it's a roll-up account for reporting purposes. You can date constrain the transactions. Beginning of time to end of time is Unanet vernacular for BOT to EOT. And then you can also say which accounts go with which organizations. So if you have an organizational tree, maybe certain accounts only go with certain divisions or departments. You can also define additional item types, and the additional item types can be placed on invoices. And then for each additional item type, you just say what account are we going to debit, and then what account are we going to credit. There are also different posting options. So Unanet supports time and materials, fixed price, and cost plus billing and revenue recognition. And for cost plus, some of our customers will choose to bill at provisional rates and recognize at provisional rates. Other customers will choose to bill at provisional rates and recognize at actual rates. Either way, you can see the Unanet will do the true up for you at the end of the year. For time and materials, you can use the labor using the work date, and then for expense report posting, you have options over here. You can also define different invoicing numbering schemas. So if different clients require different numbers on the invoice, you can set that up. You can also set up different payment terms. So the payment terms can default to the customer. You could override those if you wanted to. The meat of this gets into the invoicing formats, and you can have as many different invoicing formats as you want, and then you can apply the different invoicing formats to your different clients and your different projects. Unanet also allows for you to have multiple invoice formats to a particular client or invoice group. So for example, you could have a cover sheet, and then underneath that cover sheet, you could have supplementary detailed information. So within each of these formats, and again, you can have as many as you want, we call this a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get. So effectively, the left-hand side controls the right-hand side. The right-hand side is what the invoice is actually going to look like. And then the left-hand side has a variety of different controls around manipulating the data on the right-hand side. So for example, if we wanted to modify this time and materials labor section, we could say, show the comment that people are entering on their timesheet on the invoice. And if we check that box, when we hit refresh preview over here, now we'll see where the comment is actually displayed on the invoice. So it allows you to see the invoice and what the invoice is going to look like before you actually produce the invoice. You also have the ability to see an logo here. You have the ability to have as many different logos as you want, and then you can place logos on the different invoices. Under the organization's contacts area, this is where you can specify contacts for your different organizations, your different clients, and you can have default bill to, ship to contacts here. You'll also notice an email field here. If your customer allows you to email them an invoice, we can email them invoices directly from Unanet. So if we go into this list of projects here, you'll notice one customer has many projects associated with it. Customer 1 has 4, customer 2 has 6, so on and so forth. Each of these projects has a primary billing type. And again, you can have hybrid invoices where you have time and materials, fixed price, cost plus, all on the same invoice. You could also have hybrid projects where you have, for example, time and materials and fixed price on the same project. However, one project has a default billing type. So if we start with time and materials, in Unanet, you'll define a list of master labor categories. So this is a list of master labor categories with default bill rates and effective dates for rate escalation purposes. And you can have mid-period rate escalations if you want. But you can have as many of these rate escalations as you want for each labor category as well into the future. And then if we go into a project here, within a project, you could also have what we call PLCs, which are project labor categories. So this is effectively your rate card for this particular project. These are the valid labor categories on this project with the associated bill rates for this particular project, which again could be the same as the master or could differ from the master. There's also a area where you're assigning people to the project, and you can see on this screen the same person could have different rates in different labor categories depending on what they're doing. So for example, Chad User is an administrator at $50 an hour on brand strategy. Chad User is a designer at $103.45 an hour on code. And when we go into this particular line item, you can see you can either use the person rate, which is a rate associated with Chad. You can use the labor category rate, which will change when you change the labor category here. You'll notice that the rate will change depending on what your labor category is set to. Or you can actually just type in your own rate here. There's also, under the time and materials world, there's a pre-billed labor area for retainer purposes. If you want to pre-bill labor and then work off that retainer amount, you can do that. If we go into a fixed price project, under the billing area, we can do a fixed price billing schedule where we set up a monthly or quarterly kind of recurring billing schedule, or we can do an item. And if we do an item, we can do it at the project level or the task or subtask levels. We give it a description here, and we can do milestone billing if we want, where we're billing upon completion, or we can actually just give it a bill date. We give it a dollar amount. And then when are we going to recognize the revenue associated with the $48,000? So we can either recognize the revenue when we bill it, or if we want to be in compliance with GAAP, we could recognize the revenue based on percent complete, or we could actually define a custom schedule and spread that $48,000 into the future. So with the percent complete revenue recognition, you can either tell Unanet a percent complete to recognize by, or Unanet will calculate the percent complete based on other values in the fields, like actual, like estimate to complete, like budget, etc. Or you can use this custom schedule where you're actually, again, spreading that 48,000. And if you spread it, by default, it will spread it linearly. And then if you want to move money around, you can move money around. You can put more money up front. You would take out money down here. It wouldn't let you save it unless your variance to your bill amount was 0. So your revenue obviously has to match your bill. And then for a cost plus project, actually for all projects, you have a total value and a funded value, and you can limit the billing and or the revenue to the funded value less the fee if you want here. And then for the fee calculation methods, you can have multiple fee calculation methods. So for example, in this case, if you wanted one fee on labor and another fee on ODC, You could set those up. You could have as many of these as you want. One other thing here, if I show the, I've referenced this earlier, but within each project, you can have a kind of one project, one invoice, meaning invoice standalone, or you can have a lead project. And then if you have lead projects, you have contributor projects that are all grouped on the same invoice. So in this case, content production is a lead project, and these other projects, Health IT and StudyX, are part of the contributor projects that are on the same invoice. So these are the contacts for this particular invoice. Again, I referenced you can print the invoice off to a PDF, or you can email it if your customer accepts the invoice via email. You can BCC your address, to have a record of delivery. You could have additional invoice formats, as I mentioned, so you could have a cover sheet and then multiple formats underneath it. And then you can choose to show or not show other information, including kind of free-form text directly on the invoice. So the next video gets into how you actually do the billing and the revenue recognition. So this is a report that's showing us what has been billed versus what has been recognized in revenue and the difference between the two, and then the deferred amount here. So we've heard from our customers that Unanet has significantly reduced the time they spent in reconciling their unbilled, because everything's here in kind of one single source of truth. And this video hopefully gave you an understanding of how that data is set up in the system. And then the next video will talk about how do you actually walk through the process of taking all of the timesheets and the expense reports and the fixed price items and actually getting them on an invoice and eventually turned into accounts receivable. Again, if you have any questions, please contact Unanet 703-689-9440. Thank you.